So now it's time for production, and I had 2 days over the weekend for the entire shoot schedule. And that Sunday was my makeup day for any backup shots that I needed. Through the production on the very first scene, we got through everything, but not so smoothly. No matter what happens, no matter how much you prepare, there's always going to be issues to run into. But with that in mind, I had fun solving all those problems. It helped me to stay on my toes as I was going through each shot setup. So I have this process when I am working on my shot list. As I mentioned before, I lay it out on an Excel spreadsheet. While I'm setting that up, I'll make an alternative shot that'll be a long take, especially for shots that are complicated, and I'll even use it for some of the more basic shots, just as a way to save time when I'm on production, so that way I can, if that long take doesn't work, I can use chunks of that to kind of sprinkle with the other shots that I've gotten. I use my shoot schedule as a guideline, but of course, as soon as you get on set, nothing is set in stone. So I really had to discern between what would still serve the story. So I would be adding in some shots or taking out shots, depending on its importance. I want to also mention that I made the mistake of feeding everybody pizza. And this was something that I've learned after the fact, but apparently it is a bad idea to get everybody pizza on a film shoot, because it is referred to as the ring of death or something like that, and it slows down everybody. So after feeding everybody pizza, it took a little longer to get the rest of the shots, and then I make the same mistake the next day without realizing it. So later that night, we were going to shoot scene 2 at the Rotary Trail, which was down the road. And as nighttime came, the lights turned on, and I was like, oh crap. I was supposed to use a shot in the tunnel where I can get like a silhouette of our character. With those lights, it just mitigated the entire look and appearance. As I was talking with my DP, we were still kind of questioning if lights would even be seen in our main character's view of the world. Would there still be artificial lights shown? And that's something I didn't really figure out in pre-production, so it was challenging what we were doing on set. With us not being sure what the lights were meaning for us, and with the oncoming thunderstorm, we just decided to call it a night. I was fine with cutting out scene 2, because the only important bit in that was the main character thinking back on the last time he had a good pair of ribs, and that would in turn make him even hungrier since he was already without food, and it would lead him to scene 3, digging in the trash can. So with that cut out, I had to basically do some improv with that portion of the script.
Humanity, now that they're gone, this is all that's left, and it's useless.
So my makeup artist, Alyssa, was amazing. She did a fantastic job in making David look really dingy and dirty. There was dirt all over his hands, his face was dingy. It was only icing on the cake, given that he had began growing his hair out, and his beard grew and got all scraggly. And he also had a good wardrobe to pick out with old clothes that really served the character. But I still felt that makeup was crucial, because it really added that last piece to the puzzle of how this character is, and using the aesthetic of how he looks to tell his story very subtly.
4.5, take 2.
So morning time came for day 2, and we were without a DP, which meant we were also without our main camera. So it was time for me to improvise once again. I used my SL1 for that morning shoot, and because of that, it turned me into the one-man band once again, because I was directing, operating the camera, I was my DP, which those two are kind of the same thing, and I was working the microphone for a couple of the shots that we needed as far as the dialogue in the later half of that scene. And on top of all of that, this was the scene for extras. So I had Tiffany, who also served as my AD for that scene. She served as the character that was the twist, the counterpoint to the entire plot leading up to that scene. I had 2 scripted drivers to help reinforce the reality that our main character chooses to ignore. One of the things that I had fun with doing in this scene was the tracking shots. I had dolly back shots for two different angles, and to achieve that, I sat in the back of a vehicle and had my camera on a stabilizer, which I did not know how to use properly. That's how I had each shot set up, and I also used that to go back to the very, very last bit. Sat in a car. So now it is nighttime on Saturday. We were setting up for the climax of the film, the interaction with the dog. The use of ADR came in really handy for this scene because the entire time we were filming, there was a frat party going on the other side of the fence. So there was no use of raw audio that we could get from what we were filming. So every bit of noise that you hear, every sound you hear in that scene was recreated. So we got to the point where we were coordinating with Clint and Simone about how we were going to set up each shot with Cole. And I actually interviewed them to have them elaborate more from their end what we had to do to set up for that.
I guess like with me being the director, I had a certain way I wanted to do things, but I had to accommodate for the stipulations of like your sort of process with the dog. So what did you have to do to prepare Cole?
I think that the scene really worked out perfectly. All the behavior it's been built over time in different training settings and circumstances, and we really just manipulated the scene to fit what he can do and show, and offer something that he already knows how to do, and we just translated that into a movie scene.
Now we couldn't just jump right into filming. You had to get Cole kind of riled up.
Right.
So talk about that process.
He loves to do bite work. Anytime that he knows that we're gonna do bite work with or without equipment involved, he is very, very excited to do it. So it's almost like switching a light switch. It is that easy to get Cole amped and ready to go. So for the scene, we used some equipment, so he would be very fixated and focused on me. And what we did was have you manipulate the angles, so I would be off camera, and we would present the right sort of emotion from Cole to get what we needed, so he could steal the chicken from, I don't know the guy's name.
David.
From David.
Yeah.
Dog. For the dog running scene, I finally got to use a gimbal. Never used it before. I had tons of fun using it. It was an example of me having resources to better equipment that would make my job easier. It was the one scene that I was planning and preparing to achieve in other methods, but each of those methods weren't going to be perfect in their own ways, and it would take me a lot longer to set it up to get the same kind of result. So that gimbal was a blessing because it allowed me to run as fast as I can with no trouble with the camera angles and stuff. All I had to do was set it up and just go. I was chasing a dog like 3 or 4 times, and it was very, very tiring. And after that, we did some more shots towards the end, and that was a wrap. And then we were on to get ready for post-production.